My old patent attorney called me the night before the board meeting, and he didn't waste words. "Deacon, it's Walt. I've seen the resolution your son is bringing tomorrow. He's voting you off the board, removing you as chairman. He's got the votes lined up." I let that sit a moment. Then Walt said the thing that changed everything. "But Deacon, he doesn't seem to understand what he actually has. The core technology, the thing the whole company is built on. It's still licensed from you personally. You own the patent, not the company. If you pull that license, there is no company. Does he know that?" I looked out my kitchen window into the dark. And I said, "No, Walt, I don't believe he does. My son was about to fire me from the company I invented. He forgot I could turn the whole thing off with one phone call." Welcome back to The Forgotten Father. Grab your coffee, get comfortable, and remember the people in these stories had every chance to do right by the ones who raised them. They just chose wrong. Drop a comment and be sure to subscribe. You're going to want to stay till the end. My name is Deacon Hale. I am 75 years old. I live in Dayton, Ohio, in a house with a workshop in the basement that I've never cleaned because I know where everything is. I drive a 1999 Honda that runs like a watch. I wear a pocket protector, and no, I will not apologize for it. I'm an engineer, a tinkerer. I hold 41 patents. Most people who meet me see a doddering old man who talks too long about circuits. That's fine. Let them. But I want to tell you a secret, and you'll need it, so hold on to it. 40 years ago, in that basement workshop, I invented something. I won't bore you with the technical part. It's a component. A small, unglamorous piece of engineering that makes a certain kind of industrial sensor work far better and far cheaper than anything before it. It's the kind of thing nobody thinks about, but it's inside thousands of machines. It's the reason those machines are affordable. And I built a company around it, Hale Instruments, from nothing, in that basement, into a firm worth a great deal of money. But here is the thing that matters. I never sold the patent to the company. The company licenses it from me. Personally, I did that on purpose, decades ago, on Walt's advice, for exactly the kind of day I was about to have. The company is the body, but I am the heart. And the heart was never for sale. Let me tell you how it started, because it explains the license. I grew up poor. My father worked a factory line his whole life and got laid off at 58, 2 years before his pension vested. The company just cut him loose. No loyalty, no thanks. It broke him. He died a few years later, bitter and small, a man who'd given a company 30 years and gotten nothing back. I watched that as a boy. It carved something into me. I swore that whatever I built, the workers would never be disposable. And I swore I'd never let a company own the thing that gave it its power, so no board of strangers could ever do to me what they did to my father. That's why I kept the patent personal. It wasn't paranoia. It was memory. My father taught me, without meaning to, exactly how the powerful discard the people who built them. I made sure it could never happen to me. I just never dreamed the person trying to do the discarding would be my own son. I built Hale Instruments in the basement while working a day job. Marion typed my patent applications on a kitchen table. We couldn't afford a lawyer at first, so we learned patent law ourselves, at night. Exhausted, a young couple betting everything on a small idea. When the first big contract came, I cried in the car. Marion held my hand and said, "See, Deacon, the world finally caught up to your brain." She believed in me before anyone. She's the reason there's a company at all, and she's the one who agreed, 40 years ago, when Walt suggested keeping the patent in my name, that we'd do it, even though it cost us a tax advantage at the time. She said, "Protect the workers. Deacon, protect yourself. Money comes and goes. Never give away the thing that's actually you." I have thought about that sentence every day since Grant started circling. Never give away the thing that's actually you. She saw this coming from beyond the grave. Let me tell you about my son. His name is Grant. He's 50. Grant has an emba and a talent for making people feel he's smarter than they are. I brought him into Hale Instruments 15 years ago and made him CEO 10 years ago, because I was getting older and I wanted my boy to have it. That was the plan. Build a thing, hand it to your son. And Grant ran it well enough, on paper. But somewhere along the way, he stopped seeing me as the founder and started seeing me as an obstacle. An old man who asked too many questions, who cared too much about the workers, who wouldn't approve the cost-cutting that hurt people. Grant wanted to move the plant overseas, lay off the Dayton workforce, and juice the numbers for a sale. I kept saying no. I had the chairman's seat and the founder's conscience, and I used both. So Grant decided to remove the obstacle. He decided to remove me. Here's what hurt, and I'll be honest. It wasn't the ambition. I was ambitious, too. Once, it was the contempt. I heard how he talked about me when he thought I couldn't hear. On a call in his office, door cracked. The old man is holding us back. He's sentimental. He doesn't understand modern business. Once he's off the board, we move fast. Sentimental. Because I didn't want to put 400 Dayton families out of work. My son had come to see his own father, the man who built the thing he ran, as a doddering relic to be voted off and forgotten. Some of you know that feeling. Being treated like an obstacle by the very person you built everything for. It's a cold thing. It gets into your bones. My wife Marion would have seen it coming years ago. She read people the way I read schematics. She passed 3 years ago. Since then, I've been quiet. Maybe too quiet. When you go quiet, people forget you're still paying attention. Grant forgot. He looked at a silent old widower puttering in his basement, and he saw someone finished. He did not see the man who'd engineered the very ground he was standing on. That was his mistake. It's usually the mistake. They confuse quiet for gone. I saw the signs for years. I looked past them, the way a father does. Grant stopped asking my opinion and started informing me of decisions. He moved my office to a smaller floor for the renovation and never moved it back. He took my photo off the lobby wall, the one of me in the basement with the first prototype, and replaced it with abstract art. He introduced me to new hires as our founder, retired, past tense, like a plaque. He'd cut me off in meetings. He'd sigh when I brought up the workers. A man tells you what he thinks of you in 100 small moments, long before the big one. I collected everyone and forgave everyone. That's the father's disease. We keep explaining away our children's cruelty because the alternative is admitting the child we raised turned out cold. I couldn't face it, so I told myself he was just modern, just ambitious, just stressed. He wasn't. He was preparing to throw me away, and I was helping him by pretending not to see. If you've made it this far, do me one quick favor. Subscribe. A lot of people watch without ever doing it, but it costs you nothing and means everything to us. Thank you, genuinely. Now let me tell you about the license. Let me explain the thing Grant didn't understand. Simply, Hale Instruments makes its money from products built on my core patent. Every unit they sell, every contract they sign, depends on that one piece of technology. And the company doesn't own it. It rents it from me, through a licensing agreement I structured 40 years ago. There's a clause in that agreement. Walt made sure of it. If I am removed from the company against my will, or if the company acts against my founding conditions, I have the right to terminate the license. Immediately, and without that license, Hale Instruments cannot legally manufacture or sell a single one of its main products. The company would stop. Overnight, Grant was about to vote out the one man who could switch off the lights, and he didn't even know the switch existed. Why didn't he know? Because he never asked. Grant came up through business school, not through the basement. He knew the org chart. He never learned the engineering. He didn't understand that the whole empire he thought he'd inherited was balanced on a single patent held by the father he was about to discard. He'd read every financial statement. He'd never read the one document that mattered. The license. It was right there in the files. He was too busy counting the money to notice who owned the faucet. I have to tell you about Walt, because loyalty like his is rare. Walt Perez has been my patent attorney for 40 years. He was a young lawyer, fresh and broke. When I hired him to file my first patent, because he was the only one who'd take payment in installments, we grew up together in a way. He drafted that license agreement in 1984, and it was Walt who insisted on Section 14, the termination clause, when I thought it was overcautious. He said, "Deacon, someday somebody's going to try to take this from you. Might even be family. Let's make sure they can't." I laughed at him then. I wasn't laughing the night he called me before the board meeting. Walt is 70 now. He could have stayed out of it. Instead, he called me, and he risked a professional mess because a friendship of 40 years meant more to him than staying comfortable. When it was over, I tried to pay him extra. He waved it off. He said, "Deacon, I've been waiting 40 years to see Section 14 actually work. You don't pay a man for the best day of his career. That's a whole man. That's worth more than any patent." There was a night, before the board meeting, when I almost just walked away. I'll be honest with you. I sat in the basement and I thought, maybe I should just let him have it. Sign it over, retire, avoid the war. I'm 75. Marion's gone. What did I need with a fight? I had the papers to just surrender. And then I thought about my father. Laid off at 58, 2 years short of his pension, discarded by men who never built anything. And I thought about the 400 people in that Dayton plant who'd be discarded exactly the same way the second Grant got his power. And I couldn't do it. Not because of pride. Because of them. I picked up the phone and called Walt instead of signing the surrender. Sometimes the difference between defeat and victory is one phone call you almost didn't make. So I made a plan, and I made it very quietly, because a quiet man who's been underestimated has one great weapon, which is that nobody sees him coming. I called Walt. I had him prepare 2 documents. The first was simple, a formal notice of license termination, ready to sign, effective immediately upon my signature. The second was a letter to the board, laying out exactly what that termination meant. Then I did something else. I called our 3 biggest customers, the ones whose entire production depended on Hale sensors, and I had quiet, friendly conversations. I didn't threaten. I just made sure they understood that the technology they relied on came from me, personally, and that whatever happened at the company, I would make certain their supply was protected. I was building my ground before I stood on it. 40 years of engineering teaches you that. You don't flip the switch until you've checked every wire. The morning of the board meeting, I put on my good suit, the gray one Marion bought me, and I drove my old Honda to the headquarters I built. Grant met me in the lobby, and he had the nerve to smile, that warm, false, Emba smile. "Dad, glad you're here. It's going to be a big day for the company." He thought he was being gracious to a man he was about to destroy. I said, "I'm sure it will be, son." And we went up to the boardroom. Grant ran the meeting like a performance. He got to his resolution. He spoke about modernizing leadership and removing legacy constraints and all the polished words that mean throwing out an old man. He proposed removing me as chairman and from the board entirely. He didn't even look at me while he did it. He called the vote. And one by one, the directors he'd lined up raised their hands. The resolution passed. Grant finally looked at me then, and there was a flicker of something like triumph, softened into fake sympathy. "Dad, I hope you understand. This is just business. We'll set you up with a nice emeritus title. Thank you for everything you built. Thank you for everything you built." And then they took it from me. I sat there, an old man voted out of his own life's work, and the room waited for me to crumble, or to shout, or to leave. Instead, I opened my briefcase. And I took out 2 documents. And I set them on the table. "Before I go," I said, "quiet. The way I say everything, I'd like to make sure you all understand what you've just done." Legally, I slid the first document to the center of the table. This is the licensing agreement for the core Hale patent, the technology every product in this company is built on. Please note the owner. It isn't Hale Instruments, it's me, Deacon Hale. Personally, the company has only ever rented it. I let that sink in. A few of the directors leaned forward. Grant's smile started to slip. "And please note Section 14. In the event that I am removed from the company against my will, I have the unconditional right to terminate this license." I picked up the second document. This is that termination notice. It's signed. As of this moment, Hale Instruments no longer has the right to manufacture or sell any product built on my patent, which is all of them. The room went absolutely silent. Then it went loud. A director I respected turned white and said, "Grant, is this true?" And Grant, my son, opened his mouth, and for the first time in his polished life, no smooth words came out. Because he didn't know. He'd never read the license. He'd voted out his father without understanding that his father was the foundation, and he'd just watched the foundation walk out from under the entire building. Grant tried to speak. Of course he did. He's a salesman to the bone. "This is a misunderstanding," he said, and his voice grabbed for its smooth track. "Dad, we can work this out. There's no need to be dramatic. The license, that's just a technicality." I stopped him. "A technicality." I let the word hang. "Son, it's the technicality your entire company runs on. It's the difference between a business and an empty building. You spent 15 years running this place, and you never once read the document it stands on. That's not my failure. That's yours." He had no answer. For the first time in his life, my son had no answer. The smoothness was gone. Underneath it was just a boy who'd reached for his father's crown and grabbed a live wire. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Then I remembered the 400 families he was ready to throw away, and the feeling passed. I stood up. "You wanted me gone," I said. "You've got your wish. And you've got a company that, as of 1 minute ago, cannot legally sell a single sensor. Congratulations on your big day, son." I closed my briefcase. And I walked toward the door. Now I want to tell you what happened next. Because it matters, and because I did not do the cruelest thing available to me. I could have let it burn. I could have walked out, kept the license terminated, and watched Hale Instruments collapse, taking Grant's career and reputation with it. Part of me, the wounded part, wanted to. But there were 400 Dayton families in that building. The workers, the ones I'd protected all along. If I burned the company to punish my son, I'd burn them too, and I did not build my life's work to use it as a weapon against the people who trusted me with their livelihoods. So I stopped at the door. And I turned around. "Here is what's going to happen," I said. "The termination stands unless the board reverses today's resolution, restores me as chairman, and permanently removes the authority to offshore the Dayton plant. You have 1 hour to decide. If you choose the company and the workers over one man's ambition, I'll reinstate the license before lunch. If you choose to back my son's power grab, then you've chosen a company that makes nothing. It's up to you. I want to speak to you directly for a moment. Because I know some of you built something. A business, a farm, a family. You built it with your own 2 hands. Tired, for years, so the people who came after would have it easier. And here is the cruel joke that some of you have lived. The easier life you gave them can teach them to look down on the hard one you lived. They get the degree you paid for, and they use it to call you outdated. They inherit the thing you bled for, and they decide you're in the way of it. It is a specific kind of heartbreak, to be treated as an obstacle by the very person you built the whole thing for. If that's you, hear an old engineer. You are not the obstacle. You are the foundation. And a building does not get to vote out its foundation and keep standing. They forget that when they're up on the top floor counting the money. But physics doesn't forget. Neither should you. Keep your hand on the thing that holds it all up. They'll remember you're there the moment they try to remove you. I went and sat in the lobby. It didn't take an hour. It took 19 minutes. The board reversed the resolution unanimously. They reinstated me as chairman. They stripped Grant of the authority to move the plant. And they asked me, respectfully, what I wanted done about the CEO, about my son. And that was the hardest question of my life. I did not fire Grant. I want you to understand that. I thought about it for a long time, sitting in that lobby. But he's my son, Marion's boy. So I did something harder than firing him. I demoted him. I removed him as CEO and put him in charge of the division he was actually good at, sales, where he could earn his way back if he chose to. I told him the throne was gone, but the family wasn't. That he could stay, contribute honestly, and rebuild what he'd broken. Or he could leave in his pride. Some mercy, with teeth in it. Grant chose his pride. He couldn't survive being demoted in front of the people he'd tried to rule. He resigned within a month. He consults now, I hear, advising other companies on strategy. He doesn't call much, that's his road. I offered him a better one, and he wouldn't take it. You can't force a man to accept a gift he's decided is an insult. There's one person in the family I have to tell you about. My granddaughter. Grant's daughter, Priya, she's 22. And unlike her father, Priya loved the basement. Since she was small, she'd come down and hand me tools and ask what everything did. She's an engineering student now. When all this happened, she was heartbroken over her father, but she came to me and said, "Grandpa, I don't ever want to forget where the money comes from. I want to learn the real thing. The patent, the workshop, all of it." She interns at Hale Instruments now, on the engineering side, learning the technology from the ground up. She's going to run that company one day. Not because of her name. Because she's the only one in the family who bothered to learn what it's actually built on. She's the proof it was all worth it. I came out of retirement, at 75, to lead the company again while we find the right successor. The Dayton plant is staying open. The 400 families still eat. I walk the floor now, and the old-timers who'd been there 30 years shake my hand, and one of them, a machinist named Earl, said, "We heard the old man saved us." I told him the old man never sold the patent. Best decision I ever made, and I made it 40 years ago, on a hunch that someday I'd need to prove that the quiet man in the basement was still the one holding the keys. I still work in the basement most nights. I still drive the Honda. I still wear the pocket protector. There's a new thing I'm building down there, just for the joy of it. Priya comes down and hands me tools, the way she always has. Some evenings I look at that girl bent over a circuit board, tongue between her teeth. The way I used to look, and I think the whole thing is going to be all right. Not because of the company. Because of her. Here's what I want to leave you with. The world loves to decide that the quiet old man is finished. The tinkerer. The founder they've moved to emeritus. The doddering relic in the basement. And nearly every one of them is still holding the one thing that makes the whole machine run, if anyone bothered to look. My son inherited a company and never learned it was balanced on a single patent held by the father he threw away. Don't ever assume the quiet one has nothing left. Don't vote out the foundation and expect the house to stand. And if you're the quiet one, reading the schematics while everyone counts the money, take it from an old engineer. Keep the patent. Keep the deed. Keep the one thing they forgot to ask about. Someday, it's going to be the only thing standing between you and the people who decided you were finished. If you liked this story, join our community by hitting that like button and subscribing for more real, raw, and family-centered stories. And as always, thank you for being part of this family.